All right, let's hear from you now. 217-629-7970. And I want to know what is taking you to the polls. What are you voting for? Today's election day. Did you vote early? Did you vote by mail? Or are you heading to the polls? 217-629-7970. That's the phone number here with Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. If you've missed any of the conversations we've had so far this morning, be sure to go check out the Twitter page, Bishop on Air, all one word, Bishop on Air, and you'll be able to tap into some of the conversations we've had. We reviewed the three U.S. Senate candidates, incumbent Democrat Tammy Duckworth, Republican Kathy Salvi, and also Libertarian Bill Redpath. Later on in the 8 o'clock hour, we're going to hear from Governor J.B. Pritzker, who campaigned in Springfield yesterday. Also, some of the conversation I had with the Republican challenger Darren Bailey, and then also Scott Schluter, the Libertarian candidate. But right now, I want to hear from you at 217-629-7970. What are you voting for today? Good morning. You're on WMAY.
I'm voting against the no cash bail.
So you're voting against no cash bail. I take it that means you're going to be voting incumbents who supported that out?
I'm voting for Darren Bailey.
All right. So you're going to be supporting Darren Bailey. He has campaigned most of this season against the Safety Act, which is also got the Pretrial Fairness Act. That's a measure that takes away cash bail starting January 1st. We could see that change, though, next week when the state legislature heads into town. We'll wonder what kind of impacts the election might have on that. So I appreciate the call. He's voting for Darren Bailey. What about you? 217-629-7970. That's the phone number here with Springfield's Morning News on WMAY. You can also email me, bishoponair@gmail.com, or you can find me again, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Just message me that way, and I can get your voice heard here. Let's see here. I got a text coming in. I'm voting to clean house, somebody says via text. So, again, I had I had a friend message me from the Chicagoland area asking if my name was on the ballot. I'm like, no, my name's not on the ballot. And he says, could things get any worse? My reaction was, things could always get worse. The apocalypse is a constant. So, curious to see what he had to say. I asked him, hey, what about Amendment 1? He said, higher taxes, no thanks. So, your thoughts. Good morning. What are you voting for? Good morning. It's WMAY.
I am voting for children. I have, I guess, traditionally been in the middle. I've voted a split ticket on different parties. I've actually been a real supporter of Jesse White in the past, as opposed, and on the other side, I've voted for Republicans. What it boils down to for me is I'm not an extremist. I'm very much moderate. I think both parties are kind of off the deep end. But when it comes down to it, what's flipping it for me is, I don't think kids 12, 13 years old should be able to go get an abortion without their folks being involved. And that's something that the left champions widely. So I just can't, my conscience cannot allow me to vote for people that support that, man. So it's really kind of pushed me. So that's where I'm at.
So you're going to be voting for children and wanting to get those out of office that seem to want to make the decisions for parents about their children. Appreciate the insight there. It is Springfield's Morning News, 217-629-7970. That's the phone number here with WMAY. And we'll continue this on in the next segment, just about after 8:10. And again, I want to hear from you. What are you voting for? Today is Election Day. Have you already voted, or are you somebody who goes to the poll on Election Day and cast your ballot? That's something that I do. I've never voted early. I've never done the mail-in balloting or the absentee balloting, what it used to be called just a handful of years ago. But what are you voting for? I want to hear from you. 217-629-7970. That's the phone number here with Springfield's Morning News. Also, you can message me via Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I should be able to get that. Just search out Bishop on Air. We can connect that way. Don't forget, I still am taking money for Real Men Wear Pink. All right, so I've got about $2,000 some odd dollars. I believe I've got a $500 matching donation that's going to kick in. But if I get up to $4,000, I'm going to paint my nails pink and my hair pink. My nails are already pink because I raised $1,300, but if I get to $4,000, the hair's going pink. So help me out, WMAY.com/pink, and help out the American Cancer Society. Shout out to Heartland Hearing. Better Hearing starts today. They're helping us out with our campaign here on WMAY. Again, WMAY.com/pink. Stay tuned. More of your phone calls coming up on what is your election plan? What are you voting for?
From the Fly SPI studios, take the easy way out. WMAY FM.
Continuing getting your phone calls about what you are voting for on this election day. Good morning. It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. Did you miss that blood moon this morning? The total lunar eclipse? It was pretty magnificent, actually. Woke up at about 3:30 or so. Went down to make some coffee. Looked through the window. I was like, oh, wow, look at that. Nice crescent moon. And by the time I stepped outside with a cup of coffee just to look at the moon, the crescent got even more thin. Then all of a sudden, boom, turned into a blood red moon. It was pretty miraculous all the way driving into work this morning, just seeing it over the prairie. And I can't wait to see some of the professionals out there that take really wonderful moon photos and what it looked like. But we won't see that again for a handful of years. I think 2025 is when the next one will be. But is that an omen for what to expect heading into Election Day today? A blood red moon? Does that mean we're going to get a red wave or a red surge, or what's going to happen? Of course, across the country, the indication is that Republicans are going to take over the House and quite possibly the U.S. Senate. The question is, by how much? And what does that ultimately portend for what the politics are going to be like in Washington, D.C., with a Republican Congress and a Democrat White House? I would expect to see a lot of investigations, a lot of subpoenas, and a whole host of things being uncovered, including Rand Paul. He's likely going to be able to get really deep into the inner workings of Dr. Anthony Fauci. And you're going to be seeing a lot of revelations, I would imagine, about COVID, about the policies enacted, about even how the FBI is targeting parents for raising their concerns at school board meetings. So you'll be seeing a lot of moving pieces. But again, that's all speculative. The polls are open until 7 tonight. It'll take up to 2 weeks to count all the mail-in ballots there are. That actually might be 5 to 7 days, though. There's 320 some odd outstanding mail-in ballots that have yet to be sent in, according to the latest totals I saw in Illinois. That's enough to sway a statewide election considerably, be it the Amendment 1, or be it the governor's race, or be it the attorney general race. Of course, those are just some of the things that are on the ballot. What are you voting for? 217-629-7970. That's the phone number. Got a message here on Facebook. It says, I'm generally neutral, but this year I'm voting all red. So independent voters, especially, I want to hear from you. We've already heard from some saying that indeed they've been neutral and they've been independent, but they're going to be voting for Republicans, and some even saying voting the bums out. Good morning. You're on WMAY. Your thoughts?
You know, Greg, I think we're headed in the wrong direction in a lot of different ways. And I have to, and anybody who knows me knows I lean to the right. I don't sit on the right because I really think Susana Mendoza probably was the best comptroller we've had in years. But I don't know if we would end up with an all-Republican and one Democrat in office, if they would work together or not. We've seen this not work in the past. And so I'm just going to try to vote in a way that we can get something done in a different direction, because right now we're headed off a cliff.
Well, and there's arguments. I appreciate the call. There are arguments, and even Tom Demmer, who's running as the Republican for state treasurer, he has said that having a Republican constitutional statewide office holder can help bring a check to uniparty control at the Illinois State House, with Democrats dominating the Illinois legislature and having all of the statewide constitutional officers. And this is something else too that Elon Musk has even said on Twitter yesterday. yesterday. He said people who are independent-minded should vote Republican because you need to have balance in government. And right now, with Democrats in control of the Congress and the White House, you see that historic inflation. You see our foreign policy. You see all kinds of indications of things not necessarily going in the right direction, according to the majority of voters in the U.S. So we'll see what happens. But I want to hear from you at 217-629-7970. Good morning.
Good morning, Greg. Voting to curb the power of the supermajority. We need some checks and balances. That was proven with unilateral executive orders during COVID-19 that shut our economy down, cost people their jobs, their livelihoods, saying goodbye to your loved ones through FaceTime.
Kids not being able to walk in graduation, not being able to go to prom, not being able to play extracurricular activities, not being able to visit with their friends, being told that they are a vector of disease, and so on.
Yes, I'm also voting to curb the power of the unions. They're in cohorts with management. They can't hold them accountable. They're actually most of the time trying to dictate what the public can do now. They tried to do that whenever they represented the Department of Corrections when they wouldn't take the vaccine. There's a lot on the ballot, and all I have to say to people is if you think we're heading in the wrong direction, you think your quality of life has gone down, you think you are not as safe as you were a couple years ago, vote the incumbents out. Thank you, Greg.
Appreciate the call. 217-629-7970. We'll take a few more here. Good morning. What are you voting for?
Good morning. I looked at the ballot this morning, and, man, there are a couple libertarians that I wanted to vote for, but in Illinois, I'm afraid if I don't vote red, then I'm giving Democrats an advantage by taking away red votes. And so that worries me, so I voted all red, mainly because I've just felt trapped for the last 2 years. And if you had told me 4 years ago that this kind of stuff would happen over the last couple of years, I would have said, that's crazy. There's no possible way. And now that it has, I got to make sure that it never happens again to my kids, to my family, business, job, everything. Cannot happen again.
Appreciate the call. 217-629-7970. You know, there's been the meme going around. It's just like, some words, and it essentially says, the people who closed your business and took away your livelihood are trying to get reelected. Don't forget what they did to you. And that seems to be resoundingly what we're hearing here now. At 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Morning. How you doing?
Good. Yourself?
The big motivator for me, I mean, I vote anyway. I never miss. But this amendment number 1 is, I mean, it's just laughable in what it's trying to do. I mean, they're trying to lock in that the taxpayers who fund all these public sector pensions and salaries have no say on what they're going to be. I mean, it's just incredible. If
it explicitly says that no law or ordinance can diminish collective bargaining for a whole slew of different things, not just wages and benefits, but also some open-ended things like well-being. What does that mean exactly? And if it passes by 3/5 majority, then any kind of law that the legislature might try to enact to curb, costs, it's not going to be possible.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I lived in Illinois my whole life, and I'm glad I did until recently. But I mean, we're on kind of a knife's edge here, particularly in the private sector. And I mean, it's hard to see that in Springfield because everybody works for the government, and the money falls from the sky, and all that. But in the real world, that's not how it is. And I'm just afraid if we stack the deck even more in favor, this thing doesn't do anything for private sector unions, and they're lying when they say that. It's strictly a public sector union lock-in of who's going to be able to tell them what to do. And I just can't accept the fact that these guys can raise our property taxes every year, and the response would just be, well, it's not our fault. We have to do it. And I don't accept that. I'm still waiting for the first General Assembly vote on any of these emergency actions that Pritzker took. I mean, to me, that seems kind of foreign to our sort of government. And they just have too much power, and they love it. They want to expand it. And if we don't do something, we're going to live in a state where, public sector employees can retire at 40 with 130% of their salary or something. I mean, it's not, that sounds goofy, but it's true.
Well, and like you said, I mean, it sounded goofy as well 4 years ago, as one caller said, that we could see unilateral edicts from an executive officer through the governor to limit economic activity to the degree that he did for over 2 months, to keep kids from going to school, from walking across a graduation stage, from keeping kids from prom, from sports and such. 4 years ago, people thought, that's nonsense. The legislature would never, cede their power to the executive branch. Like, well, we saw that exact thing happen, after several news conferences that I attended back in 2020 of public health officials saying there's no threat to the general public, but that switched on a dime, and then they shut things down. So interesting to see what the outcome is going to be. Stay tuned. We'll get more of your calls at 217-629-7970. It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and taking your calls about what you're voting for. 217-629-7970. That's the phone number here with Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY. And you can always call in live and local, or you can email me, bishoponair@gmail.com. Coming up next half hour, we'll hear from some of the gubernatorial candidates, the 3 gubernatorial candidates. Of course, the Democratic incumbent, Governor J.B. Pritzker, was in town yesterday. Also, Republican Darren Bailey. I talked with him about a week and a half ago, a couple of issues that we tackled there. But also Libertarian candidate Scott Schluter. I talked with him as well. But I wanted to share with you, I guess, some of the final arguments on the campaign trail. This includes Governor J.B. Pritzker, Republican Darren Bailey, also Democrat incumbent Attorney General Kwame Raoul, and the Republican challenger Thomas DeVore. Here's some of what they had to say yesterday on the campaign trail across the state of Illinois.
To protect our fundamental freedoms, to lift up working families, we have to elect pro-labor, pro-choice, pro-voting rights, pro-civil rights Democrats up and down the ticket, right?
It's time that we, the people, get involved, and we do that today and tomorrow by casting our vote, by talking to all of our friends and family so that they show up to vote. And then you know what? After tomorrow, we show up and we start grabbing petitions to run for school board.
Listen, I think the choices are clear. I'm for workers' rights. I'm for women's rights. He doesn't think that that's an issue. I disagree. I'm in court right now fighting to preserve the Reproductive Health Act. I had to fight to make sure the Workers' Rights Amendment remained on the ballot. That's some of the differences. You don't have enough time for all the differences between Tom DeVore and myself, but I feel confident in the voters of the state of Illinois, not just the Democrat voters, but he also threatened to go after Republican voters, and I want those Republican voters to vote for the right thing as well.
All right,
The people standing in this room is who myself and Darren Bailey were fighting for. I would I would respectfully disagree with Governor Pritzker that they are the small fringe minority. I would respectfully say that they have for far too long been the silent majority. And they're not going to be silent anymore, I assure you. Because the room here right now has, I don't know how many passionate citizens in here, but unlike the governor, we don't have to give people free tacos to show up.
So just some of the final campaign messages on the campaign trail from yesterday. Today is Election Day. What are you voting for? Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Good morning, Greg.
Hey.
Well, I'm voting for a lot of things, but I'm voting for energy independence. We've been pushed towards this agenda of climate change is the biggest thing, and we've just got to go now to wind and solar. We can't do that. We need to be able to produce our own energy. We have good energy resources. And as long as we do it in a responsible way, that's what I'm voting for, is energy independence. And I just want to say one other thing, and that is if the Republicans get control, they better not spend 2 years investigating this, that, and the other thing, unless there's some there. Do the people's business. That's what I expect you to go to Congress and do.
Yeah, I think that's important, but I think the response would be we can chew bubblegum and walk at the same time, right? And listen, you're not going to get away from the politics. It's just not, not possible. If Republicans get control of the Congress, yes, there are going to be headlines galore about investigations and subpoenas and this, that, and the other. Hunter Biden and Anthony Fauci and so on. There's going to be that. But anything that the Republicans attempt to do, if they get the House and the Senate, it's going to be vetoed by the president.
That's the sad part.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But some people, their political philosophy is it's good to not have a government unilaterally with a uniparty passing things on us, and it's actually important that we have a slow approach to these things. And having divided government can provide that slower, more methodical approach to get more people on board. I appreciate the call. Got to take a break. Coming back, we will delve into just some of the last messages from the gubernatorial candidates here in Illinois. So stay tuned. That's next here on WMA.